I am David Graves.
And I am Max Murphy.
I am Vince Mariachi.
And tonight we are going to review a horror film that was promoted as a horror film, that I expected to be a horror film, but it's really not a horror film. Does that make any sense?
After watching the movie, yeah, it makes complete sense.
Red State was directed by Kevin Smith. And I'm not a huge Kevin Smith fan. What about you?
Well, what'd you ask me?
If you're a Kevin Smith fan.
He's okay. I don't mind his films. He's alright, but I'm not a overly big Kevin Smith fan.
I liked Clerks, and I liked Mallrats, and I liked the second Clerks. I really thought those were good. But as an all-around, oh my god, I have to go see this movie because it's directed by Kevin Smith, no. I'm not that kind of fan. What about you, Max?
Well, I don't even really know who Kevin Smith is until now, since you named off those movies, but I'd say no, I'm not a huge Kevin Smith fan either.
So by watching this movie, Max, are you now a huge Kevin Smith fan?
No.
Wow, I didn't even think about it.
Wow.
Well, you gave me like a week to think about it.
That no was building up for the entire week, huh?
I've been waiting to yell no at you for at least a week, yes.
What you're saying, Max, is you didn't like Red State.
Well, there's more to it than that. Because the beginning of the movie, while I was watching the beginning of the movie, I repeatedly said, why the fuck is Dave making me watch this? Over and over again. Am I allowed to say that on here?
You can say whatever you want. Just don't get naked.
Okay, no problem. But the beginning was awful. I didn't know what was going on. Well, I knew what was going on, but it was just incredibly boring. I was like, oh my god. I was like, the subject's kind of cool because this stuff's happening in real life right now too, but it was awful. I was like, oh my god. It did progressively get better. But what did you guys think of the beginning?
Well, it kind of started out like every other Kevin Smith film. Kevin Smith and like Quentin Tarantino, they both like a lot of dialogue. So, I wasn't bored by the beginning because that's what I come to expect when you watch a Kevin Smith film. You kind of expect a lot of dialogue, and that's kind of what it was. So, no, I didn't mind the beginning of it. What did you think, Vince?
First of all, let me say this. Like Dave said in the beginning, this movie was promoted as a horror film. So when I watched it, that's what I was expecting, was a horror film. And the way the movie starts out, it starts out like it's going to be a fairly decent, good horror film. And I don't know where he went with this. It's really hard to review it because it ends up not really being a horror film.
The whole time I was watching this movie, I kept thinking to myself, it seemed like a Rob Zombie film. And it seemed like Rob Zombie could have done a whole lot more with this than what Kevin Smith did.
There would have been so much more horror and gore in it if Rob Zombie did it. And there was virtually none in it at all, in reality. But, yeah, Rob Zombie probably could have done a fairly decent job with this movie.
I would have to agree that Rob Zombie probably could do a better version of this film, but in a way, he's already done it.
And The Devil's Rejects is one of the greatest horror films ever.
I really enjoyed The Devil's Rejects. I've watched it a few times now, actually, and that's a lot for me because I don't regularly watch things more than once.
Now, see, that is a horror film, even though it's about regular people, but it's still horrifying because of the things that take place. And Red State was trying to go there, but it seemed like it never really got there.
It wasn't really suspenseful horror. It certainly wasn't graphically horror. Unless somebody getting shot scares you, which nowadays with everything's on TV and video games, I'm sure it doesn't. Like, there wasn't anything in that movie.
I thought there was a couple really intense moments. Like, I loved the beginning of it, where he's in the church preaching to the people. That, to me, was a phenomenal scene.
I like that scene too, except for one thing, was that, like you mentioned earlier, Kevin Smith put so much dialogue in movies, and it was one of them. I thought that preacher was going to preach for another 30 minutes. I was like, oh, please, will you get on with it?
Well, that's what church is like. You go to church, he stands up there and talks.
It was a good point, Max.
That's the first scene in the movie that gave me hope. When we got to that part in the beginning, I went, okay, this movie, this might get good. Like, all right, that was a turning point from I'm about to turn this off to, all right, maybe I'll watch the rest of this and see where it goes.
I absolutely loved that sequence in the movie. And then from there, it just kind of like went, what?
For me, that whole sequence was like what Max said. I was almost to the point, not because I didn't like it, but it was dragging on so much that I was almost to the point where I was going to turn it off because I wasn't interested anymore. And then when he steps away and actually says one of the better lines in the film that says, "We're about to get grown up in here," I thought, okay, here it comes. We're going to see heads rolling.
Yeah, that's right. Amen, Vince. Amen.
Zombies, something. We're going to something horrifying here, and then it didn't happen.
Oh, I still love that sequence though. The guy that played the preacher was an amazing actor. I don't know what is his name. Does anybody know?
I have no idea, but he did do a good job. He did do a pretty good job. Him and John Goodman really made the movie. I was really when I found that John Goodman was in it, I was like, ooh, I don't really know how this is gonna go, but I was surprised. I actually enjoyed his character through the movie.
John Goodman's an amazing actor. I mean,
He is. I learned that through this movie. I was like, wow, he's probably him and the priest guy was probably the two main reasons I didn't really turn it off.
And so I don't know. Overall, it was a good film, but it didn't really go anywhere. That's my problem. It just kind of like went. It had a lot of great stuff, but it just kind of had like a lot of eh.
Even though I'm talking like I am about the film, I actually, out of Kevin Smith's library of films, this is actually not bad. This is actually one of his better films. And I did like the movie. I didn't see it as a horror film. I couldn't see it as a horror film. It didn't go there. It went more into an action war picture.
Exactly.
So, what are you going to give this film, Vince?
Well, for the film that it is, it's not a bad film. So I would actually have to give it, like I said, it's one of Kevin Smith's better films. So I actually would give this movie, for what it is, a 3 out of 5. But it's not a horror film, and that's what disappointed me in it.
Yeah, as a Kevin Smith film, you're correct. It would probably get out of his category his catalog that he's made. I would say as a Kevin Smith film, yeah, I would be maybe a 3.5. But as an actual movie, it's just kind of weird to say because it's I don't know. Like Kevin Smith has his own world, like Quentin Tarantino does. So, but as an actual, I'm looking at it as an actual film itself. I would have to give it 2.5 out of 5.
And they don't just have their own world, they have their own universe. But I would give the film a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, it was good, but it just didn't go far enough, I guess.
Yeah, I was waiting for more, and it never came.
And it never ended up turning into a horror movie.
Not even close.
It started out with all the makings of a good horror film, and then blah.
I really thought it was going to happen when they were in the church, man. They were, doing all that stuff with the people in the pit and the guy on the cross. And I'm like, oh, this is going to get good, Never did.
How much you think a cross like that costs?
You mean the dollars or common sense?